Many years ago, our speaker found himself divorced, broke, out of work, and sleeping on the floor of a studio apartment. How many of you can relate to that, other than mine was a park bench? Anyway, he'd been living on protein powders mixed with water for 2 weeks when it began to happen. Okay? Tim Rickey is an author, speaker, and coach. He started his first business at age 4, bugging other little kids for their lunch money.
Don't That's not the way you had it.
Oh, come on. And 45 years later, he became the Entrepreneur of the Year and Florida Business Person of the Year. For 24 years, he has provided free concerts for many charities throughout Central Florida. He is an operatically trained vocalist, but he sang something far more difficult. He was an Elvis impersonator. So, how does a man go from barely eating to being blessed with the things that Tim has achieved? Well, I'm not going to try and sit here and tell you. I'm going to let him do that in his own story of how he shifted his life around in the hopes that you can see the many things that are possible with the right attitude and desire. So let me introduce Mr. Tim Rickey.
Thank you very much. That's about all you're going to get in that part of the speech. When you're out of work, you have this state of what is commonly known as depression. Well, Dr. Bill says it better. I want you to get excited about your life because you may be out of work, but you're in a place for opportunity. Are you not? Are you wide open to opportunity? If you agree, shake your head yes. Thank you very much. Okay. And you are, actually. Now, I'm going to go back and tell you my story, very short story, on how this all began. And I told this story to Mike Dooley, Secret Coach. Do you know who he is? In the movie The Secrets. Anybody ever seen it? Anybody? Okay, you've seen it. Okay, you've seen it. In The Secret, it talks about the law of attraction, quantum physics, and things like that. Well, I told that story to Mike Dooley's group. He's one of the coaches in the video, and I was Mike's trainer at Toastmasters many years ago. And this is the story I told him. I said, many years ago, I was out of work after going through divorce, pretty much what Gary described there. Well, exactly as Gary described. And I was sleeping on the floor of a studio apartment at the corner of 434 and I-4. And I was journalizing my woes each day just to get it out of my system. I thought that's the way you did it. And then one day, after about 3 months of this stuff, I began to read my journal backwards. And I realized, oh, you just love pity parties, don't you, Ricky? Because that's what they were pity parties. It got me so upset with myself, I took that journal up, I ripped it in half, threw it in the dumpster, and put on some running shoes. And I began to run. I ran from I-4 to 1792 the first time. Now, I was a sprinter in high school, not a long-distance runner. I'm surprised I made it back home because 4 miles when you haven't done that is very, very powerful and painful. And I got back home, cooled down, took a shower, and fell to the floor just about, and a hard floor at that. Remember, I didn't have a bed to sleep on. And I put on a record. Anybody remember records? Sure, some of you remember records. A record of a sailboat adrift in a lagoon, just sitting there kind of waiting. Hear the wave and hear the gulls in the background. And I would visualize what I wanted in my life. And there were 4 things. After my divorce, I met this redhead from Scotland who was a model, and I just took one look at her, and I went from the frying pan into the fire. When you go through something like that, you immediately want something to fill that void. Well, she said, let's just be friends. Well, what guy has heard that and don't want to hear that, right? That's a terrible thing to hear. Second was I wanted my own business. I felt I had these skills. I'd worked for other companies and always done better than most in the same position, which kind of told me maybe I have some skills I could operate on my own. Third, I wanted a Z sports car. Oh, yeah, let's go, And the fourth, I wanted to build my dream.
Datsuns back then?
Excuse me?
Were they still Datsuns back then?
They were called Datsun 280Z, yeah. And exactly right. And I had 2 years of architectural college before I got drafted, so I had enough in my head to actually design my own home. I had a dream home in mind. So I would lay on the floor after that run, and I extended that run to be actually 12 miles every other day. If somebody told me I'm running almost a half marathon, I probably would have stopped on my tracks because I didn't think of it that way. I'd run from 434 and I-4 all the way down past into Winter Springs where that 580 or 480, what comes in from the side there, that's 6 miles and then back again. Well, with each one of these events, I would lay on the floor and I'd go through the same sequence
of thought process, and I visualized more and more each of the details within that plan. And what happened is 3 months later, I'm running down 434, I get to 427, beep, beep, I hear this car horn. I look over, and it's the Scottish gal. Have you got time for a spot of tea? I said, yeah. So I ran back home and I met her up at Denny's, Canterbury. Well, that one. And we sat down and talked, and I said, what's up, Margaret? She said, well, when is your lease up on your apartment? I said, well, next month. She said, that's what I thought. How would you feel about moving in with me? I couldn't talk. I mean, I was dumbstruck. Well, we were together for a year. Today we were together. We've been friends all these years. She lives right behind us. She would have been here tonight if she did classes at UCF or at Seminole State College. So I got the girl. But I want you to remember something here. I didn't go out to get the girl, did I? She came to me. That's very important about your goal. You've probably never heard that your goals are going to come to you. You've got to go get them. That's what you hear. Part two was, I want my own business. So I'm talking to a friend of mine, Harry. He had these daycares in Orlando. We had 4 or 5 of them. And he sold them. And I saw him right after he sold them. He had this big entertainer's bus, you know, like the country western stars have. I said, Harry, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to travel everywhere I can go with this thing. And I said, I want to ask you a question. You started a daycare in 1970. I said, women were still home. Whatever gave you the idea to do that? He said, well, you know, I was watching this thing that this girl, what's her name, Gloria Steinem, he said, started the women's movement, and he figured, you know, they're going to need things if they're not going to be home, and wait a minute, who's going to take care of the kids? That's where he got the idea. It came to him. So I left him that day, and I'm riding home, and I'm thinking, okay, it's 1979. What do women still need today as they needed back then? And I thought, they need somebody to clean the house. So I started a company called Tidy Made. Has anybody been around here long enough to ever heard of it? Okay, so I started Tidy Made. It grew to be a $500,000 a year business with 40 teams, 40 gals and teams out, and a dozen company cars. I started with $13.68. So please don't anybody ever tell me it takes money to start a business. Okay, $13. It takes guts, it takes courage, it takes belief to do that. And today we're in a society, especially today, of entrepreneurism like we've never seen in this country since we moved here with the British many over 200 years ago. So from that, I went to that, and of course now I got to a certain point where if I get so many more model centers, and I was doing, is everybody familiar with Bel Air Homes? You remember them? Bel Air was the builder here, right? Well, I got their model centers, all of them. Now, so also at the same time I was a builder salesman, so I pitched them appliances or pitched them cleaning for the construction cleaning. That's how I got started. And it went from that to the model centers to residential. And I really didn't know what I was doing because nobody had ever done what I was doing before. There was no teammate services then. I was it. So it was a very difficult learning, mistakes galore, but I knew to get myself the right mentors at certain points. Philip Crosby Quality College, anybody heard of that? Philip Crosby Quality College was here, and I believe there still exists, and Philip is now gone. He was a Toastmaster, he died in 2001. But I took that and it made Tidy Made one of the best maid services in the world when I sold it, at less than a 1% complaint ratio, which is still unheard of now. But what I learned from going to that school made all the difference. So when I got that Bel Air subdivisions, I said, okay, now I have a way to pay for that Z. So I went out and bought a 280Z. Okay, so I had 2 of my dreams. Now the last one was the house. How am I going to get this house? Well, as business grew, and I went out looking for a lot. Couldn't find a lot for anything. And one day I made a mistake coming off Secret Lake Park, down the street here. And I made a right turn and I went down, there's a big sign at the back. It did not go through. And it said, lots for sale. And they were wondering when I talked to them why they weren't selling. Well, nobody knew the sign was back there. Well, I ended up buying the lot and building what is now called the Pond House of Castleberry. It's a very unique, very different kind of home. And I was in it for 22 years. I sold it to someone who lost it to the bank 2 years ago. And ironically, the bank sold that house a year ago this month, to someone for the same price I built it for 25 years ago. Whoa, talk about taking a hit. It's a lakefront lot. Well, the funny thing about it is here I'm talking to the group, Mike's secret group, and I forgot to tell him anything about where the house was located. So I left and I called Mike and I said, Mike, I forgot to tell him the most important thing. What's that? I said, the address of the house. He said, well, how could that be right? I said, Mike, it was 205 Secret Way on Secret Lake. He said, how could you possibly forget that? And I'd totally forgotten it. And look at how it proves out the fact that if you focus on your goals, and all of these came to me, I didn't go get them. I want you to make that clearly. Focus on them, but the most important thing is believe. You've got to believe it'll happen. And this is where people could run into these problems. I give you about belief and fear. It can stop you dead in your tracks. I have 13 different Toastmasters I coach right now. And I have my own way of doing it. It makes it very simple. I never hear the speech until I do it. I want to see the speech. I want to take it apart as where did she, oh, there you are. As you mentioned about looking in the body for the headline. And I'm going to give you two examples of how important it is when you're doing your resumes. One of them was a gal. She had a, when you evaluate property, she was an appraiser. And she sent me her icebreaker for Toastmasters. That's your first speech. You really talk about yourself so the club gets to know you because you're joining part of our family. And I read it, and she said, and she said, also my great-great-great-grandmother was an Eskimo. There was the opening line of the speech. So she walked out, she says, hello, my name is Kelly Kellogg, and I am an Eskimo. Well, the place roared. You know, that was all she needed to win the contest that day. About 2 months ago, I was working with Benjamin on his third speech. He'd never won until he worked with me, and now he won two, and he's going for the third one. I changed one word in his speech. It was the last word. And I always say, these are my recommendations. Do what you feel in your heart. And it was a speech about trying to bring something new from Bogota to the States, or Cali in the States and back, because you always had trouble with customs. It was a rock they used to crush food in a certain way. And when he finally finished the speech, he finished with, you know, I don't have to worry about that anymore because, you know, now I'm an American. Well, I thought that was okay, but let's make it a little more powerful. Today I don't have to worry about that anymore because I am a gringo. And he won again. So sometimes just one word in your intro and your resume can be very, very powerful. Extremely powerful, how you put that together. Now there's, you know, I've done a lot of things in my life, and that can be a problem sometimes because I went to a bank once, and they're looking at all these things I did, and they say, what's the matter, Mr. Ricky? Can't keep a job? No. You know? And it's just that I've had two talents in my life. One was to be able to sing, and the other is that I have a thirst for knowledge that consumes me. I want to know everything. Now we get Google. I used to go here to learn my business. I'd pull out business books galore, figure out how to run this dark business. You know, what do you know? I shouldn't say this. I've got all these women working for me, and they're women, I'm a guy, so this can be a little bit of a problem trying to understand where they're coming from. Fortunately for me, I worked for Sears, and I ran a shoe department in Green Bay, Wisconsin, with 16 women, so I learned the skills of trying to make everybody more comfortable with the leadership field. So that helped me when I built Tidy Me. But there are so many different things that you can do, and I've just taken some notes. So here's my speech. And when you're a Toastmaster long enough, you can scribble some things down, and you can roll with it. But there's three things I wanted to let you know. First thing, shift happens, right? And that's going to be a workshop next month, and I'll let you know how you can register. It's going to be here in this room next month on the 20th. You can come if you like, it's free. I just want to introduce people what happens. We're in the point in our economy today that the average time somebody stays on a job is only 2 years. I read that the other day and I was astounded by it. When I was growing up as a kid, I remember my neighbor worked for Sears. He retired from Sears being a department manager with $250,000 in the bank, and that was in the 50s. That was a lot of money in the 50s because they had a profit share program. So when I got out of school, I worked part-time in town, then I joined Sears. And I was with Sears for a number of years. Then they took away profit sharing, some other things, so I left it. I left Sears. But what I learned in operating my own business was incredible from that basis. So I had to shift, because I went from here, a guy that ran a retail store operation, to going into a service business and I had never done, and yet I was successful. Was I lucky? No, it wasn't luck. It was a lot of work, a lot of stress. And I'll get into how you avoid the stress a little later, which would be, hopefully for you, a very mind blower, and if something you'll learn, it would be very, very powerful. So shift happens, so you want to continue to get yourself educated. If there's another field that interests you, and here's a clue on how you want to know what you really should be doing. There's a time in your life when you were doing something, you were having so much fun doing it, you went, oh my God, where'd the time go? When you lose track of time on something you're doing, that's a hint that maybe that's what you should be doing. I met a girl back at, used to be a little pizza place back there. Remember it used to be where the coffee shop is, or no, was it a bagel place back there? And I mentioned that to her, and she came back the next week and she had this photo album of all these pictures she'd taken. They were outstanding. She said, this is what I really love to do. Then she disappeared, and 4 months later she come walking in, she said, I'm the photographer for this new magazine. She got her job because she took that with her for the interview, and that's all it took. They saw her work in photos. So try and figure out what you really love to do and go for it. And by the way, everything's going to be all right. I can promise you that, it always is. I have 3 questions I ask some of my students. Have a man, we'll call him Johnny, just for the sake of giving him a name. He went through a bankruptcy. I tried to train him as a speaker, but he couldn't remain focused. There was something wrong that he couldn't do that. He'd go, oh, he's getting there, he's getting, oh, no, there. And then he goes off in tangents of something entirely not related to what he was talking about. But he called me, and he emailed me, and he said, I'm really depressed. Coach, what can I do? So I wrote back, and I said, I'm going to send you 3 questions. This is the first one. Do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Do you have food on the table? Yes. How's your health? Are you okay? Yes. 4th question. The 4th thing I wrote him was a statement. I said, so what's the problem? The reality is, if we have those things, the only thing that interferes with our problems is we're thinking about tomorrow. Because everything's okay today, so don't lose today and the joys that are there today by thinking about the worries of tomorrow. Guess what? 99% of the time you're going to be wrong anyway, and you will be, I promise you that. And 1% you might be right, so is it worth the time? You plan for it, but let it take its course. Let it come forward, because that's very, very important. When I discovered that, and it took me discovering it not from Tony Robbins, but from my coach with Tony Robbins when I worked for Tony. I don't know if you mentioned that. I worked for Tony Robbins. Get this, Tony hired me at age 60. All of the other people he hired for that event were half my age. Why did he hire me? I did a speech for him, his sales manager. But there was 2 things I did, and this might be very helpful in the interview, and you'll have to judge this. When I was talking to Dave, he goes through the interview process, and he says, one thing I want to do, I want you to give me a little speech. By the way, I was in the international speech contest that year, and I made district, the speech I gave. Which, when he was done, he said, okay, Tim, we'll be back in touch with you. I had him crying, and I had the audiences crying. It's a true story about me. And has anybody ever heard of Sky King?
Yes.
Sky King was a friend of mine. He lived here in Wood Spring, and he died the same day the Challenger exploded. So that was my speech. But I said, Dave says, is there anything else, any other questions you have? And I said, well, yeah, I do have one question, Dave. How did you get involved with Tony Robbins? Because he said I had 2 minutes. 45 minutes later, I left. See, I took an interest in him. Very important that you take an interest. If it allows you to slip in that question, you take an interest in them, they're really going to think, wow, this person knows how to connect. And I did it because not because I was trying to do a technique, it's because I really wanted to know how we got involved with Tony Robbins. It was very sincere. And it was a very interesting thing. But that was David, and the other one was A.J. Rosenthal was my coach with Tony Robbins. And we, after the event was over, flew to California. We spent a week going up to the E-Myth Academy in California. Has anybody heard of Michael Gerber's The E-Myth? No? If you're going to open a business, buy that book first. But E-Myth Revisited, it's here in the library. And he taught me about how to be present. And I'm going to teach you all this. Because when Tony talks about it, for 3 days in a row, and he does the Unleash the Power Within, what we call the UPW, I didn't get it. But when AJ did it with me, I got it. And this is what I like to do for you. We were riding down the Pacific Coast Highway in California, going through Carmel. Wow, what a pretty little place that is. And we're in his Maserati convertible. AJ did pretty well in his day. And I told him that. I said, I don't understand what Tony was talking about, being in the present. What does that mean? Does anybody Have any difficulty understanding what that means? Good. Everybody does. Okay. I know you raised your hand up. I said, I don't get it. He said, well, let me do a little exercise with you, and perhaps you'll get the idea. So I'm going to do that exercise with you, and hopefully it'll carry over to something you will leave here with today that will be very, very powerful in your life. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. Everybody must close their eyes on this because if you don't close your eyes, it's not going to work very well. So close your eyes, relax, get very, very relaxed. I want you to take a deep breath through your nose and let it out very slowly. And then do it again. Deep breath through your nose and let it out slowly. I'm going to do it one more time. Take a deep breath and let it out. Does that feel good? Right? Now, I want you to listen closely. Can you hear noises you didn't notice a few minutes ago? Can you hear the fan on the projector here? Shake your head yes if you can hear it, okay? Or you heard somebody out in the hallway a second ago? So you're going to say, now when I was doing this with him, he's asked me, do you hear the birds? And I could hear the birds outside. And the sound of the cars, other cars went past us. Is to smell the air. Can you smell the cologne or perhaps perfume of someone next to you? And I hope the guys aren't wearing a perfume. Anyway, and I could smell orange blossoms because it was February, and that's when we have orange blossoms. We used to have orange blossoms in Florida. And he said, okay. He said, now your hands are on your lap. Can you feel what's underneath your fingers? All of you do that. Can you feel what's underneath your fingers? You can feel the cloth of your clothing or maybe your laptop or something like that. You can feel those things. Okay, let me ask you, open your eyes. How do you feel? Do you feel really relaxed? That is being in the present. Here's the clue about being in the present. The senses can only be used in the present. You may be able to read something later or hear something later with your sense of hearing and sight, but so far as smelling, taste, and many of the other things in that realm can only be done while you're in the present. So if you're wondering if you're in the present when you worry, and those senses aren't involved, you know you're not in the present. That's the clue. So when you get into a state of worry, you're thinking about the future or you're thinking about the past. Past is gone, the future, like I said, 99% of the time you're going to be wrong. Why bother? Plan for now, for the moment, and what's going to come for yourself. And remember what I talked about, the visualization techniques of how I pictured that thing. Now the house, my dream house, which by the Secret Lake is back about 3 blocks from here, 4 blocks. I actually put the boards together one by one. I could tell you how many 2x6 and 2x4s because I had architecture, so that helped. But I kept structuring it and restructuring every day. Now, does anybody feel like poor at visualization? Can you all do it, or do you feel you're poor at it? Well, if you practice that, you get better and better. And the reason I used a record of a sailboat instead of music is I'm a musician which has a beat in it, and that would immediately draw my attention away from nature and the naturalness of it all, because nature plays a big point in this. So here's my suggestion, remember that, but when you get up in the morning, here's what I'd like you all to do. Everyone should do this. You get up, you step outside the door, and if you're driving your car out of the garage, get out of the car. I want you to get up and look at the sky. It's going to be different every day, I promise you, okay? Then close your eyes and listen. You're not going to hear a bird. You're going to hear a ton of birds. You're going to hear all kinds of, you hear the squirrel, and all over the branches, things like that. And the reason I know is because I do this every day now. Almost every day. Seldom do I miss it. And then you can smell the air, and sometimes if the right flowers, especially jasmine lately. Anybody notices jasmine? If you haven't, pay attention to jasmine's blooming really nice now. Those things fill you up. And then as you leave, if there's a plant, try and touch the plant, nature. We are so connected to nature, we just don't realize it. Now you're going to work with a whole feeling you've just been in the present. So what do you think? We're looking for a job, I guess I should say. So what's the point? The point here is that your attitude starting off the day is in a better place than it was before. It's very important that those things come about. So keep in mind that exercise. You just remember to use your senses when you do it. And you were talking about when you're writing your resume, remember, a speaker knows this, an entertainer knows this, it's about them. It's about you guys when I'm up here. It's not about me, it's about you guys. So when the resume, when he was talking about your resume, make sure you're addressing their needs, not yours. And everything gets taken care of if you do that. Now here's another one. If there's something you really want, if there's a certain job you want, is there anybody want here, is there a certain dream job they would like to have? Is there something? What is it?
Philanthropist.
Okay, that means, well, first of all, it must be, you have to be an entrepreneur. There ain't any other way about it, because whatever you do, no matter what you get paid, you're only going to get half of what the value is, because they got to run a business out the rest, okay? So that's a good one. So, does this work there? Yes, absolutely. You prepare the place to receive the goal. Okay, now, I am no longer a rich man. I was a millionaire at one time. And once I lost everything, I found it. I want you to think about it. It's very, very important. What was important is what I found. Now, I still drive a Mercedes, but it's not a brand new one. I wouldn't buy a brand new one. To me, that would be foolish because of the cost and the depreciation value. But driving that car is important to how I feel about myself. So you prepare yourself. I'll give you an example. There's a woman in Australia, she wanted this perfect guy in her life, perfect man in her life. So she had pictured him, she wrote out what she wanted. She actually set up her bathroom so there was a set of towels for him. She prepared the bedroom so it wasn't all feminine, it was masculine, it was a combination of things. She always had another table setting when she ate for him. 3 months later, she met exactly what she wanted. Because she's putting more of the components together. The vision of what she wanted, more and more, and it works. A year ago, I started a thing called sensory goals. That's involving those same senses that I talked about in getting a goal. I had 8 goals. I've achieved all of them. Now, the last one was I wanted a Porsche. So I settled for a Mercedes, but I figured, hey, that's not bad. But one of the goals was I wanted a petite, intelligent, funny redhead in my life. 3 weeks into my sensory goals class, she walked into this room. Her name is Janet. And she can't believe that I actually did a visualization process and a goal process to bring her and us together, do life together. So we've been dating now for all that time. But it isn't interesting, it's exactly with that. So, one thing is about setting your goals, but what do you expect? Because if you don't expect it, you're not going to get it. You've got to believe you're going to get it. If you get an email from me, let's say, ask, be loved, receive. Everybody says, Ricky, you got a typo. It isn't a typo. I so love my belief in what I'm going to achieve, I use that word. Because I get what I want out of life. Because I believe I can get what I want out of my life. I get requests for jobs at least twice a month. I'll be 70 in 20 days. I still get requests for jobs. And it isn't how I wrote my resume. That has something to do with it, but it's my belief. I want exactly what I want to do. But I really not take any jobs. I work 2 days a week. The rest is writing, my speaking, my training my people because I don't need it. I work for Best Buy as a trainer for Canon products. That's why I complimented them on all those Canon cameras back here. So I train Best Buy. And I love working with these kids. They're all college kids, almost all of them. They're great to work with. You keep your attitude about this country going, because you know they're going in the right direction. And they love to come in the hub, as they call it. But they've got a big screen TV with movies going all the time on their barack. Or they're gaming. This is how they relieve. But they'll come in and they want to talk to me. And I only get 15 minutes twice a day to actually do that. But they all want these questions answered. So they come to me as a mentor, and I'm glad to help them because I can see the possibilities in them. A man told me years ago, and I'll conclude with this, he told me years ago, he says, Tim, I see in you the possibility of being something far more powerful than you ever imagined. And I left there saying, yeah, this guy doesn't even know me. But you know what? I'll tell you the same thing because that's true. It's that you have to believe it. You have to believe what you want to do. Don't let age ever interfere with that. I ain't stopping when I'm going to be 70. No way. I'm having too much fun. And it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. That's exactly the way I feel about it. So let me conclude and say that visualize, use your visualizer, enhance that dream, that perfect job, that perfect person, that perfect house, whatever it is you want. it will pop up. And the opportunity is what you have to pay attention to. The opportunity will be right there in front of you. You get ideas all the time. They'll pop in. I got 2 ideas today that come. Where did that come from? One was, how many of you lose your umbrella on a rainy day? I left my umbrella. Where did I leave it, right? Why isn't there a transmitter receiver? So if you go too far out of range or something big, oh, my umbrella. Simple. So I Google it, right? Nobody makes it. I got an opportunity there. Another guy yesterday, Best Buy, he represents some adapters for companies. He was in and we're talking in the hub yesterday, and he said, look at these glasses, man. The yellow lenses. Shooter's glasses? You know, they're not shooter's glasses. These are for gamers. Because their eyes get strained from playing the games all the time. And they really work well. He said, but I found something else you can use it for. What's that? He said, let's go out to the computer. So we go out to the computer, and I slipped them on. I thought, whoa, my eyes get blurry because of a writer looking at that screen all day long. I put those on, and the text cleared up, and I said, wow. He said, yeah, did you go to the computer requirements? I said, yeah, did you talk about it? Yeah, they don't want to listen. So I'm thinking today, wait a minute, why don't you do something about it? Him himself. Instead of trying to sell them where they might get sales, we could bring them to an optical store or a whole subject, all of this stuff. Go to China, they're selling for $100 a pair. And it probably cost in China $5. I don't know how to do that stuff. That's okay, we'll figure it out. We will, you know. So opportunities appear all the time. So when it comes to your goals and setting those things, look for the opportunities. They're going to appear. They will show you the path to follow. I promise you they'll path. Now, I've got a couple cards back there, and anybody wants to sit down and have a cup of coffee, I'll be absolutely delighted to do it. I enjoy talking to you, giving me your time to help you. It didn't fall right on date. The first thing was I wanted a Mac Air. And I didn't have the money, but I knew that when I was working for Best Buy in the interim, this was about 3 years ago, that I could save enough money. It was $1,400 at that real skinny one, you said. I could get it. And here was the middle of December. My contract was up in 2 weeks. I didn't have the $1,400. I had 1,000 in there I could buy it. But I didn't. But I went to the Apple site, and I said, what's this on the left-hand side? Refurbished Macs. So I went down, there's a Mac Air for $1,000. I thought, wow. But wait a minute. It doesn't have a CD player or DVD player. Then I saw some Mac books that did at the same price and had more hard drive memory, and I thought, well, you know, I know that was my dream, and I visualized it, and I actually used sensory tools, which meant I touched it, I smelt it, I didn't lick it because I figured they'd really get upset at the Apple Store, but I did all of the senses involved in that, and that I go into details in that workshop. But so I ordered it, and then I got the receipt back, right, through email. Thank you for ordering your Mac Air. How did I get the Mac Air anyway? I don't know. You know, there's something about putting the dream together to happen. The one thing you want to avoid is anything that's negative. And how do you avoid the negative? You change your mind. You think about something else. Just put it out of your mind. You said, I have not gotten those. Put the word not out. You're still coming. You're still coming. Keep visualizing. Set up a...
I haven't given up. I'm not...
Good, good. That's what's important. Don't ever give up. If you don't give up, you'll get it. Hoover said it best. The most important thing above all is persistence. And Margaret calls me the most persistent man she's ever met. And so persist, 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 persist. And it may not fit your timetable because things have to come into play to make it work. And they have their own timetable. But if you select them and continue with it, they will come to you. Absolutely will come to you. If I hadn't proven it to myself, I wouldn't be here standing and talking about it. But it's happened so many times with me. There's more things involved in the procedure that goes all the way down to things like water. I kid you not. The most researched thing there was by Leonardo da Vinci was water, but you'd never heard that before. I was surprised. It's in his diaries. It's in there. It's on the internet. It's in English, not backwards like he wrote it. But that has a lot to do with it too. And I get into that in workshops, but not here at the time. Any other questions? So I want you to all
Maybe a round of applause to
Yeah.